Welcome to another episode of the Trailblazers Experience podcast, the podcast where we share candid conversations with women sharing their career journey. Really excited for today's podcast because I've got a double act, a power duo, two amazing ladies who started a business called Peachies, which is a diaper or nappies subscription service. And my two amazing guests, co-founders, are Rima and Morgan. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
It's such a pleasure because I'm thinking to myself, I have two children, 19 and 16, and would I have loved to have a subscription service when they were younger? Hell yes. So talk to me about your paths as co-founders and what led you to start your business, because I've read your pieces in Sifted and Forbes, and I believe the business has had different iterations and different names. So do you want to sort of introduce yourselves because you are co-founders? Maybe we'll go with Morgan first and then Rima.
Happy to take it away. And thanks again for having us on. We're super excited to be here. Peachies is exactly that. It's the modern nappy brand for contemporary parenting. We focus on a premium nappy, which we think offers families uncharted value in terms of things like less laundry, less nappy changes in a day, and of course the convenience of subscription service. We focus on things like softness as well as eco-friendliness to provide families with really an unrivaled diaper or nappy experience. Peachies, yes, you're right. We started as Cleanest actually way back when. Rima and I met actually at business school at Imperial College in London. We had a crazy idea to pursue nappies. We saw an unloved industry and thought, what a great opportunity to actually kind of turn the game on its head. And we were actually at that time vice president and president of a student club, actually the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Club, because we're little nerds and we love business and we always have. And Peachies actually came out of that time of us working together. And we had like this symbiotic sort of working relationship from the very beginning. So Peachies is a business school project that has made it somehow out of the classroom and into the market. Rima, over to you.
Yeah, I think I'll give a little bit more flavor on how we actually met. Morgan, I bumped into Morgan, or actually Morgan and some of her new classmates at the beginning of the school year in the orientation week. I remember I walked up to them complimenting one woman for her dress, and then Morgan told me she was thinking, what a weirdo, walking up to a woman to say that she likes her dress, but also nice. She thought she would never see me again, and a week later, turns out that we were matched together to run this club together. And then really quickly actually found out that even though it was COVID and we never spent any minutes together in person, that we just really loved working together. And, we both had this passion for entrepreneurship. We both come from family business backgrounds. We were both raised from, I would say, strong mothers that managed to combine their career, a really steep career in both cases, with raising, children at the same time, which I think now, as we're going through this and see many, many customers or parents, of course, in our community go through this, how exhausting and how demanding that can be. So we're really proud that we have that background, and I think it certainly inspired us to at some point in our lives become entrepreneurs. We had a little idea that it would happen that fast right out of business school, and so this kind of love or this passion for entrepreneurship and this love for creating brands that people love certainly inspired a lot of how we started Peachies. And then before actually kind of really, like going on to company's house and paying the £25 and actually starting the company in real terms, we said that we wanted to sit down together and meet in person before actually starting something like this. And so we met in a park somewhere in East London and shared a bottle of wine on a blanket. And we went through that wine quite quickly and then realized that, yes, we can actually also stand each other in real life. So let's do this.
I love that. So did you both always, just going really back in terms of your childhood and growing up, was that your original goal to say, we're going to go to university, we're going to study, and then we want to start businesses? Or did you have other goals before that? Curious.
It's a great question, because I always, whether I get asked this or grapple with this question, people always say, like, are you born to be an entrepreneur? And actually, I don't think so. I think anybody can learn the essential skills. And actually, entrepreneurship, because it's such a creative path, is open to so many people. That said, I went to space camp as a kid, so I was pretty set on being an astronaut. Turns out physics is not really my forte, or I didn't spend enough time on it, but that got dashed pretty quickly. But both my parents were entrepreneurs, and I came from an entrepreneurial environment, so I was predisposed to that kind of career path more than things like biochemistry, for example, or being a doctor. I didn't have any exposure to those kind of things, not for any lack of effort on my parents. It's just, I just grew up in my parents' business, which was water treatment in the oil and gas industry. I mean, we're talking niche beyond niche, but also sustainability well before kind of anybody was really talking about that at an industrial, kind of heavy industry level. But I did do, when I reflect on it, I did do things like try to start small businesses. My friends and I would have lemonade stands, like, the very quintessential sort of American childhood entrepreneurship thing. But I did that on the weekends in the summer, or, I would put cupcakes in people's mailbox, which in hindsight, they probably thought they were like bombs or something, but they were trying to start a bakery business, or, whatever it was. And I remember having this little book as a kid. American Girl dolls were big when I was a kid in the 90s. And American Girl dolls also had a book about entrepreneurship, of course, labeled something very differently, but it was about how to start a business as a child, kind of. And I used to carry that thing around with me, like, and cling to it and flip through the pages and try to think of ideas and just try stuff. And it's only upon reflection, I'm 34 now, looking back on my career, which has been very winding, and nothing has sort of touched nappies or diapers or entrepreneurship necessarily. But I remember that book. And I remember, being in the office with my parents, sitting under my mom's desk at Deutsche Bank, and, her having to balance being a mom on the trading floor and having kids, and of course me being homesick or something. And all of those things mount, they accumulate, and they do impact you. And I think I knew I wanted to do it at some points. I think I was fortuitous to go to business school and to meet Rima and to be able to make that dream a reality much sooner than I initially thought. And to have somebody alongside me as a co-founder that was willing to take the risk, that was willing to dive in, and that I trusted implicitly from the very beginning, made it doable.
It's funny, and I didn't know that story about Gil Morgan, but I had a very similar childhood story about, of course, you don't grow up thinking you wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I also set up lemonade stands. Back at home, I used to sell my parents whatever came to my mind, whether it was glasses that they already owned, or creating some sort of paintings and then selling that to them, or some sort of services, massages. Just trying to come up with whatever I thought that I could make money with. And something that always excited me was this idea of creating something. And so I think what makes an entrepreneur a great entrepreneur is this, I think you have to be a good generalist to really be able to, you don't have to be specialized in any way or know exactly every single detail. Of course, at some point you do that. You don't have to know every single detail about the industry that you want to step into. We were certainly not nappy or diaper experts. Today we can chat your ear off about strike through rates and all the chemical technical aspects of the product, because we of course need to ensure that that's taken care of, and that we work with people that we trust on that front. But I think a great entrepreneur is a generalist, in a sense of, you wear so many hats on a daily basis. Sometimes you go from fundraising to customer conversations to marketing to operations to team building and strategy, etc. So there are so many different areas of the business that you need to be aware of, that need to be taken care of, that I think this generalist, we always call ourselves, we're proud generalists. That is an important trait to have in order to to step into something like building your own company.
Yeah, someone posted on LinkedIn the other day about if you're a specialist, you only have a narrow view, whereas a generalist, you have a wider view because you're looking at different pieces of the pie and you can see and understand holistically the whole business. But I'm really curious to understand, look, being an entrepreneur, hats off to you to even starting the business, but why diapers? Why nappies? I know the three reasons why it's important to do so, because for me, when I was raising my kids, it was the absorption rate was really important. What is it doing for my, child's bums? And then also the smell as well is how contained is everything else. And one thing I did realize is I thought actually that nappies or diapers were biodegradable, but actually they're not. As a parent, you could probably think, okay, that should have been my light bulb moment to start this business. But for you, you come out of business school, you have that bottle of wine, write your business idea in a fact pack. Why diapers? Why nappies?
It's a great question. We saw something unloved, and I'll cover it from kind of a product perspective, and Rima can cover it kind of more from the industry. But nappies have been around a long time, and we've seen over the progression of the decades sort of a move towards commoditization of the products, and it's no secret that, like, even if you don't have children or have nothing, no relationships to them, Pampers. It's like so socially ingrained in us. We were laughing before we started this episode, right? That you're like, I have to remind myself not to say Pampers because it's so ingrained. And we totally get that. And we've experienced, we all have had that experience. But what was so interesting to us was we thought this is a product category that's really a necessity good. It's an essential good as you raise children. And it's one where we've seen the product quality move down as opposed to up. And we thought, what a great opportunity to actually bring sort of high design into nappies, and not just for the sake of making a premium product for the sake of just having something that's, quote, luxurious, but actually what does premium design mean in a category like this with a product that you use every single day, multiple times a day on what is very precious to you, which is your children. And what we thought what we could do with premium was kind of cross off two things. We could, well, even three. We could ensure parents had something that was skin friendly on their children and solve issues like nappy rash. We also saw if we invested in design, we could make something really comfortable to wear that could be worn for a long time. So things like absorption and fit were really important to us. And that investment in that premium design also unlocked for us something I'm sure we'll dive into more, but a sustainability part of our story, which is if we can use products like ours and parents can have less changes in a day, for example, we ultimately send less nappies to landfill. Because you're right, nappies are not biodegradable. And that's a huge conversation in our industry that hasn't fully arrived yet. But there is much we can do to try to improve the status quo of the industry. And we think actually taking nappies towards a more premium side of the market, indeed creating a new category in our space, is a way to deliver not only on the promises to parents for excellent product quality, but also look at things like sustainability more critically.
From a brand perspective, we got really excited by the industry when we started digging deeper and saw that it's really an industry, or one of the last consumer product industries that hasn't really changed much. Pampers and Huggies, of course, dominate almost 80-90% of the market. And since the 60s, 80s, there hasn't been much change in the industry. And so also from a brand perspective and from a service model perspective, we saw a huge opportunity for innovation. So service model, I mean, it is the perfect subscription model. It is bulky, it's essential, and pardon the language, you need a shit ton of them. Meaning that you know exactly how much you go through, and you know which size you need. Sometimes, not always, but you know exactly how many you need in each size and for how long until your child is potty trained. And of course, for us, it's the perfect subscription product. Hence why Peachies is a subscription-based D2C company. But on the other hand, what we saw from a brand perspective is that the companies we've already mentioned, they're kind of your mom's nappy or diaper company, not yours. They're not designed for millennial or Gen Z families, for example. There we see, pastel toned, non-inclusive brand language, photography, colors that just do not represent what millennial or Gen Z families like to purchase. And we see it more from a community standpoint also. We are creating a community of like-minded parents that value high quality products, that value a community where they can feel like they're part of it. They're building it with us. We really try to also involve our customers in the conversation, meaning, when we launch new products, when we create new, even email flows, it's small things that we need to look after. But in the end, we want to design for the families and make their life a bit more joyful. And if we can meet them in the exact right moment when they're about to run out of nappies, we want to know exactly when that moment is, so we don't send you unnecessary emails, but send it exactly in that moment when you need to reorder, or when in case you need a top up, for example. Same with information that we put out. We've seen that it really resonates when we speak about taboo topics, speak about torn vaginas and leaking boobs. It's just something that is so normal, but for whatever reason, no one talks about it. And we see the highest open rates on emails like this. Same on social media. Those are our posts that perform best. And so I think there is a huge opportunity for us to create this community of Peachies parents.
So you've done the whole the triage of product, brand, and community. And community is so important. It's that so what that you're finding your why behind your product. And there is actually a niche, a customer base out there you can see it from the type of prams that they're buying, to the clothes, and if it transcends to the diapers as well. I mean, that's brilliant. So let's talk about sustainability, because it's a very big critical concern. Talk to me about your green mission and how you're implementing eco-friendly practices in your business.
Happily. And I think one thing we didn't even mention yet, actually, when we had the idea for Peachies, was we weren't parents. We were tapping into kind of, yes, our sort of nerdy sort of business sense of seeing opportunity and wanting to pursue it. But we were immersed in communities where, whether it was family members, I had 6 nieces and nephews at the time, or friends that were really starting to enter this chapter of life, and to see not only the joy it was bringing them, but the toll it was taking on them. And so you really start to pinpoint what those issues are, where those frustrations are for the people that are closest to you and that we wanted to design for. And, ultimately we want Peachies, although it's a premium product, to be something that is more accessible, and to educate customers about, if you are taking some of that hard-earned money and putting it somewhere else, or spending a little bit more in a particular good that you purchase on a regular basis, what value are you unlocking? And we want that to be all the things we mentioned, plus the sustainability piece. So, we are operating in an industry where we're operating in an industry where volume has always been what drives it, right? There's realities of what it's like to be one of the big players in our industry, where your business is so established, you make millions and hundreds of millions of units of diapers in a year, that your incentive to change, no matter kind of the tide of customer demand, is difficult. It's difficult to cannibalize your own business, right? Whereas when we're coming into the market for the first time as people that are not entrenched in an industry for the last 20 years, we were not limited to what's been done. We weren't limited to old ways of thinking. We actually had the opportunity as generalists and non-parents to think very laterally about what the opportunities could be, and therefore design a product. Sustainability from the very beginning was a driver of that. And not only because we see customer demand for that, but we just think it's good business sense. And it's not just about how you design your product. It's about how you hire people, or how you think about your business holistically and its impact, not only on the planet, but the communities in which you're involved. And so we try to think about that in all different ways, not just about our product or our packaging, but try to think about how we can create long-term value for customers and for our community, and indeed now our investors. So sustainability from a diaper perspective, children use like somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 by the time they're potty trained. I mean, it's a massive number. But what we saw was in our industry, there was sort of the market leaders, and then there was like the eco brands, so to speak. And despite their best intentions, a lot of those eco brands actually really fall short in terms of product quality. So if the nappy's falling apart, leaking, tearing, you're using more of them, then what are we actually solving for? Because it's obviously not doing its original job. So we saw this opportunity to create a middle ground, something where you could really rely on that premium performance, and by nature of that, unlock some of the sustainability credentials. So less changes in a day, for example. We also take a huge effort to include more eco-friendly materials in our product, but crucially where it makes sense, because we think, the best thing we could do is give you an excellent product and then not over-index on the same problems that our other, some of our competitors in the industry do to result in negative product quality, even if you've done more eco-friendly substitutions, right? So our philosophy is kind of no bullshit design. That's what we call it, is like, what's the best opportunity to create a great product, but also alleviate some of this green guilt that we see parents have over and over again. But the other half of that is actually like viewing nappies sort of like, our approach to nappies sort of is like preventative medicine. If you diet, or if you take care of yourself, you eat well, you sleep, you exercise, you take time out for self-care, you're going to end up going to the doctor less, and certainly to A&E a lot less. We see the same way with nappies. If you use something like Peachies, you're investing in your overall well-being, both for you as a parent, the comfort that something works, but it's also going to be great for your child. You're also alleviating as many nappies as we can that need to go to landfill on the back end. We'll, of course, always continue to invest in our product design, and we always think about things like biodegradability as a target in which to achieve. And we're very transparent with customers about where we stand today, where we still use plastics to give a nappy that's really going to make it through the night, for example. But we would just want to empower them with information so that they can make the best choice for their family. And so we think there's no reason to kind of like greenwash or bullshit people. It's like, this is the ingredients list. This is where we've made green substitutions. This is where we're still working. That if you purchase from us, we will continue to invest in research and development so that we can get to a product that has an even lower environmental impact. We also have to think about very, very boring things that like only Rima and I will nerd out about, which is waste infrastructure, for example. Because it's not just a product problem, it's also an infrastructural problem. And we want to make a positive contribution in our industry to that. And we're always very thinking about, what can we do to collaborate with others in our industry with waste management, for example, so that we can drive those changes. But it's a long road. And so we just have to be, thinking ahead. We have to invest in research and development, but we also have to stay super true to customers, which is we want to help you on this journey. We're making smart substitutions and trying to solve this for you, but we're not perfect yet. But if you stay on the journey with us, we'll keep pushing. And, that approach, that open transparency and always striving for better sustainability credentials is really what drives us as a brand as well.
Yeah, and look, I mean, adopting a no bullshit policy is the best way because the consumer is very savvy. For me, what I've understood in terms of your product, of what the USPs are, is obviously convenience with the subscription service, but a high quality product that is serving my baby's, needs, which is very important. So if I know that that's okay to tool, and the third element is obviously you're working on the development and so on and so forth from a sustainability perspective, that for me is just being transparent is really important. As founders. Now let's talk about launching a business or a company. It is no small feat. I'd like to understand, are you bootstrapped? What's sort of the revenue right now? And do you have loads of investors? Just talk to me about the challenges that you faced. We know that less than 2% of investment goes to women. So that's already a hurdle that a lot of startups and businesses such as yourselves are trying to face. But what other challenges have you faced since that toasting to that bottle of wine and starting the business all those years ago?
Well, go ahead, Ian.
I was just gonna introduce the fundraising topic. Well, fundraising is never really an easy topic, but there have been a lot of moments. I would love for you, Morgan, to talk us through what our fundraising journey looked to date. For me, it was, I think there are so many other things that we can mention. You know, for us, it's less, for example, about revenue, but more about customers and seeing, you know, having thousands and thousands of customers in the first year was one of the I would say one of the biggest milestones for us, is to see how our community is growing and how the word of mouth is spreading. And yeah, this momentum that people like to call it is finally happening.
Well, it's a metric itself, Rima. So customer acquisition, how many customers you have on your database and the lifetime value. So how many customers have you managed to achieve since launching the brand?
So in our first year, we managed to get over 5,000 customers.
That's brilliant. You know, most people only get 5 or 10 if we count all the family members who bought the product. The biggest challenge is getting someone outside your family to buy the product. That's exactly it.
And honestly, launching our business in, I think it was mid of June 2023, the first day was great. And we had, I think it was probably 10, 15 purchases from our database, from friends and extended friends and family members. And we thought, oh my God, we're making it. This is great. And then the next day, I think almost the next day, it was 0. And then you realize, okay, this is actually not easy to be done. And you start to understand how many moving pieces in a D2C consumer business there are. And it's not just about, you know, customer acquisition from a performance marketing perspective, but you need to understand your email marketing channels. You start to understand how organic marketing works and how organic influences performance and how that influences email and how partnerships influence the rest. And so you kind of start building, like you start very small in all those areas. And then at some point they start to interconnect, and that's when the real magic happens, so to say. So when you would have asked us in our first month, I think I wouldn't have said 5,000. That is, of course, you know, what investors would call hockey stick, or I personally don't like that word, because I think for us, sustainable growth in a way that we can maintain it and not run out of inventory, for example, that we can maintain it in terms of having a healthy work culture for our employees and making sure that customers always receive a high quality product, high quality customer service, which is something that is incredibly important. We've found in the online space, because you have so little direct interaction with the customer in the first instance, that whatever goes wrong, and things do go wrong, you know, sometimes, most of the times, for example, when a customer experiences a leakage, which is of course the reason why we've designed Peachies, is to avoid all of that and to have a nappy that lasts through the night and gives you 2 or 3 hours more sleep. But sometimes that happens, and it's, I would say, 90 to 99.5% of the times it's because they're in the wrong size. And so what we've created, for example, is a nappy concierge service that reaches out, or when customers reach out, we have someone to take care of exactly that point and make sure that we bring parents in the right size. And so many times we've actually had customers come back to us, say, can I leave another review? Because actually the product is great now. It works way better than any other nappy or diaper I've tried in my life. And also your customer service is outstanding. And so I think what I'm trying to say here is, you start small in many areas, but then you kind of start to see how areas overlap, and how positively they can reinforce each other.
It's so funny to think about launch, because it's something you build up so much in your mind, like launch, when is it going to happen? And 2 interesting things. One, we got great advice from early investors of ours that backed us, that founded the world's largest kids bike brand called Voom. They've been very successful in their own rights, and great collaborators with us. The product designer of those bikes told us, he was like, if you think it's time to launch, then you're too late. So you have to sort of step into this uncertainty. And it's something you build out in your mind, and then actually one day you just like turn it on and see what happens. And it's just, for some reason, that effort to turn it on is so daunting, because you go from like the dream, like you've been selling the dream, to like, okay, now we got to make the dream work and practice. So that's been a very interesting journey. I was also on my baby moon, because of course these things coincide. So I was 7 months pregnant, and my husband and I had planned, and it was time in Greece together, and I was like, well, okay, it turns out we're going to launch Peachies this week as well. So kind of true to the entrepreneurial life, that like it's such a blend of kind of fluid between what's personal and professional at the same time. But back to your question.
It's so funny talking about when those milestones happen. They, for some reason, always happen when you're planning to go on holiday for a week. So we've closed, for example, both of our fundraising parts of the round, both of my holidays in the last 2 years.
Yeah. We switched warehouses on Friday. I was on holiday, not so much. Yeah, exactly. That's just always how it goes.
Holiday all the time.
It does sound like it. But I think the fundraising journey, you're right, as Rima said it, it's never easy. Even more so as a consumer products business, even more so as two women. I mean, you mentioned the statistics, which are shocking. And actually, among my previous roles, I was in an organization that was focused on trying to get more investment towards women entrepreneurs, and also get more women into the tech industry. And so I had seen a lot of those systemic issues before even entering into Peachies and putting myself in the entrepreneur's shoes. So not only did we launch during when I was pregnant, but we started our last fundraise, which was the beginning of this year, right as I came back from maternity leave after 3 months. So that was a shock to the system in a massive way, which I'm so glad I've lived through, and is great evidence as to what it, like, having a co-founder, and this is something Rima and I will say over and over again, is probably what has kept us in Peachies this long, is having each other. Doing it by yourself is really, really hard. And of course, people are cut out to do it, but I know I'm not. And there's no way I could have gotten through that period beginning of this year without Rima to lean on. And a great example of, it does take a village to get these things done. We are not bootstrapped. We actually raised money kind of across 2022 and 2023, and then the beginning of this year. So we've done 2 rounds.
What series are you on at the moment in terms of fundraising?
We would consider the last one to be seed, I guess.
Yeah.
So we've raised a total of 1.4 million to date. And in this last round, brought on a couple of smaller funds. Well, not both small, actually. One is one of the largest VC funds. So that's total misnomer. Antler backed us as a direct investment, which is quite cool. And then Another Way Ventures, based here in London, is consumer products powerhouse in their own rights. And then the rest are angel investors. Fundraising is pure grit and networking. Honestly, those are like shameless networking. If somebody's like, oh, I don't have any I can't invest. Like, okay, so who do you know that can? And like literally just being that bullish all the time and being really willing to just talk to random people about your business is what has gotten it done for us. Rima is so good on the origination side. She's like, I went to this and I came back with like 10 new leads. I'm like, thank God, because I just want to sit in the corner and sip my glass of wine and not talk to anybody. So thank you for doing that. And then I do little like project management,
the follow-ups.
Yeah, exactly. That's me. But like, I get, that's a good example of how we like play to our strengths respectively, and then like also both have to step out of our comfort zone. And like that is kind of truly, whether it's the fundraising journey or just our journey as entrepreneurs, to our experience, it's like a heavy mix of how can we play to our strengths and that of our team, and then who can we bring in if we can't fill any of those bases. And then the third part is like stepping out of your comfort zone and just being willing to be curious and vulnerable, curious to learn, vulnerable to fail, and just like keep pushing forward. And that's how we've got it done. Frankly, it's like, it's hard. It's hard to meet random people. It's hard to get cold connections, but like people do answer on LinkedIn, and people will, like, if you go to these networking events, sometimes they really do pan out. And if you talk to anybody you know that's founded a business, they're going to tell you just have to get kind of comfortable being uncomfortable.
I mean, you've talked You've talked about some amazing milestones. Look, you need to pat yourselves on the back. I guess three. A, you launched your brand. You had that idea and you launched. Secondly, you've got those customers. 5,000 you can build into something else. And you've gone into an industry where people be making babies for a very long time. So if you can build on that traction, very great business model. And last, you've raised over £1 million. That is a feat in itself. So be proud of your milestones. I guess I'm also interested in understanding the challenges. What challenges have you faced?
I mean, I would consider fundraising a challenge especially in 2023. But for me personally, it was taking on the sole leadership of Peachies when Morgan went on maternity leave, which of course she had every right to do so. But the moment she told
you were on your own.
Yeah, the moment she told me she was pregnant, I was like, yay! Oh my God, what does that mean? And that was, before we had even launched. So I knew kind of within the first 3 months, she would leave the business completely for 3 months, which is, of course, nothing in comparison. But still, I wanted her to also have this really valuable time with her little one. And it's something that you only get to experience 1, 2, 3, or however many times you decide to have babies, of course. But for me, it was, I was also a year younger than now, and a year more inexperienced than now. So you grow with the business. Also, you develop really a lot of resilience over time. So I think right now it would hit a different spot, I guess. A year ago, it was for me the first time running a team in my entire life. It was another hard part was taking decisions without having a sparring partner. Morgan and I, we always say that, yes, we have complementary skills, but also what makes us, I think, is that we can fully step into the role of the other person. And so what we like to do is, when it comes to important decisions that we take, I just love having her perspective on it. And even if I don't take it, I'm not saying we agree on every single thing. We certainly do not. We always treat each other with respect. I think there was only one little fight that we had over the last 2 or 3 years, which I think was so overdue. But we like to just get the perspective of the other person. And so for the first time in those 3 months, it was a walking on the edge of, where do I include her still? Where do I take my own decisions? Also, some sort of feelings to run those things on my own, because we had been building Peachies for such a long time before together and have taken so many decisions together. And then kind of this shift towards being a solo entrepreneur, but also not, was really challenging. And I think the last point that I will mention on this point is, and I've mentioned this at the beginning, is the amount of different hats you wear every single day. And sometimes several within an hour is certainly exhausting. And so kind of taking care of your mental health became a really important topic in that period. I think it stayed. I still think this is, as an entrepreneur, you need to be hyper aware of your mental state, because ultimately it's a marathon and not a sprint. And you need to power through it, or you want to power through it. And this is also why, we take holidays, why we encourage our employees to take holidays, and holidays meaning time away from your phone, because basically your phone is your most important work asset at that point, apart from your laptop. But really taking this time off to recharge, we always see is incredibly important. So I think for me it was this maternity leave, and I was very happy when she came back. And I I remember her telling her, Morgan, we need to fundraise now. And we should have started yesterday, but now it's the time. I remember I had like the financial model prepared and half of the slides that we needed for our investment deck. It's like, Morgan, I need you, because on that is the last point from my side on fundraising. There is a beauty when you found a business as two women to do it together, to tell your story together. I think we're just different if we're the two of us than just, I have my side of the business, so to say, and she has hers. I think when you bring that together, that's when the magic happens.
That's amazing. And I think you've touched on a very important point, is you are both powerhouses, but the fact that you both found it important for Morgan, rightly so. You're pregnant and take that time off and, recuperate. You've just had a child, etc. And Rima just having to take the reins and manage the business it's important, because then you're coming back with fuel, creativity of greater things you can do as well. And Rima's probably learned some things about herself during that time working you too. And then you realize, oh, we actually need more runway. We need to raise more money. So it's, in a sense, lots of challenges, because yes, you are wearing different hats. I think when you realize that you're at a scale where you can delegate things, that's when you know that your business is now in a safe space. But for a few years now, you're going to be wearing multiple hats and getting involved in the nitty-gritty of every part of the business as well.
For sure.
Let's talk about networking. And you've talked about how it plays such an important role in the business and the growth, getting the investments, building the community. It's so pivotal. And I always talk about it on the podcast, because there's a fear of, how do I start talking to people? And we live in a world that is, you're living offline and online. So your phone is your friend, building those networks and connecting on every social media platform out there, from Snap, Telegraph, LinkedIn, to anything out there to get your name and your brand. But are there particular connections or partnerships that you think have been pivotal to building your networking circle, especially as entrepreneurs?
For sure. Partnerships and networking, as we mentioned, played a massive role in our growth. I view it, or we view it in kind of threefold approach. One is partnerships from a founder perspective, partnerships from a marketing perspective, and partnerships from an environmental perspective, so to say. The first one, from a founder perspective, we've been part of a few accelerator programs. The one that I think is important to mention here is the Amazon Sustainability Accelerator, which has been one of our most important, not only accelerator programs, but networks that we formed over time. And the reason for that is because Amazon managed to bring together 12, I think it was, consumer companies, consumer good companies, from sustainable toothbrushes to pet food to cleaning products to ultimately nappies, diapers. They've just provided us with an invaluable network that we still tap into almost every single day. We shared an office space for 1.5 years. I call fellow founders if there is an issue. You go through the same problems or challenges at a different time, and even if you don't sell the same product, you still face the same issues. You talk about who to hire, what to launch next, how to go about your warehouse breaking down or not working in the way you wanted to. And so this is certainly one of the most important communities. The other one that I, of course, need to mention here is Imperial College, who have been where Peachies started, and they're still supporting us in every shape and form till today. And then from a partnerships from a marketing perspective, that is a little bit different. The reason why I'm mentioning this here is because for us, we use it as a marketing tool to partner with brands where parents would least expect us to be. So we think there is huge value in breaking outside of the baby care category, and so we love to partner up with fellow founders that we like, brands that we admire. So for example, we partnered with past evangelists around the topic of we're the unexpected heroes of your family's to-do list. We partnered with sexual wellness company Hanks around rediscovering intimacy postpartum. And our recent collaboration was, of course, within the baby, or not baby care, but mother space, with 4 mamas with their pregnancy retreats. So kind of tapping into different audiences, but also finding a creative way and thinking outside of the box of how can a partnership actually help both of us, or both or all companies involved in that partnership. And the last part of partnerships that I mentioned at the beginning is partnerships in terms of environmental, not environmental, but sustainability. So we see sustainability has also a social aspect. And so one of our partnerships that we have is Save the Children. We fundraise in aid of Save the Children to support families in need because we think that social impact is just as important as environmental.
It's really great to hear that you're taking a different approach to targeting audiences, because the classic way, and you'd probably just be spending so much marketing dollars, pounds, if you were targeting the same audiences as 80% of who owns the market. You actually need to go the other way and say, who are people who resonate with our mission, our vision, and our brand, and what are the issues that matter to us to tap into those audiences as well. So a very good approach, and probably, much better for you as Peaches. Do you know what I've always wondered is, where did the name come about? Because Peaches is really interesting name for a diaper subscription brand.
It's a great question. And actually, the true answer is it's kind of a happy accident. We had been looking and pursuing a very different name, actually, and knew going into the trademark battle that we were going to have some problems with trademark application. We're like, okay, we got to come up with a backup. And we had something close to Peachies. It was like Peachy or something, and we didn't quite like that it ended with a Y. And so we ended up combining it, basically Peach and the IES, to make Peachies, which was, so the IES was taken from the other name. And when we saw it on the page, we were like, this is brilliant. It's, the peach emoji looks like a little butt, and peaches are soft and sweet, and it sounds fun and playful without sounding too babyish. But also at the same time, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm from the Peach State. And so it was like kind of a happy coincidence that all of this kind of came together and could represent both the product in an intuitive way without being like, like our original name, Cleanest, way back when we were at Imperial, everybody thought we were cleaning products business. And so Rima and I went through this process. We sat on the video call and visualized and closed our eyes and said, now visualize a warehouse full of Cleanest. Is anybody going to buy them? And we opened our eyes and we said, no. So we knew we had to change. And yeah, Peachies, we had, we were in a session with our branding agency and some advisors and a friend, actually, who is a parent and a very good marketeer. And she said, why don't you just combine them and name it Peachies? And we're like, Sarah Child, that is amazing. And shout out to her for helping us connect the dots. So it's truly just one of those confluences of all the beautiful things that you've been working on. And we ummed and awed for months on this. I mean, months and months. Again, it sounds like I'm always on holiday, but on my honeymoon, I was on my honeymoon in Brazil. I was texting Rima, we're just texting names, anything, and we couldn't come up with anything. And so when we saw the kind of the logo, and I even have our snazzy new water bottles here that I'm showing you on camera, but the fact that the E's could look like little bums and stuff, it just kind of all fit together. And we find it so often in our journey with Peachies that you can never only rely on your gut. You need data and analysis and inputs, and you as a founder, it's your job to sift through all that information. But at the end of the day, your gut tells you everything. And we could not land on a name that we thought we could take forward. And then we found Peachies and we're like, that's it. And it just clicked. And you just kind of know, even if you don't have all the information, or as Rima and I always say, even if you see the staircase, but you could only see the next one or two stairs instead of the kind of full journey, you kind of know when something feels right. And Peachies clicked. And now we're like, we love it. It's so much fun. It's such a fun name to play with and to do things with. And I think it represents our mission as a brand to really actually represent parents and to keep parents as the protagonists. So it's something that they would probably have in their house or display or talk about without being like, it's this little kind of kitty cutesy brand that is like everything else I kind of shop from in my category. So yeah, it's a happy little journey for us. And it's just a name that honestly to this day brings a smile to my face. And when I see, because I also am a Peachies customer myself, when I see the box arrive to my house, I look at it, I'm like, Rima, can you believe we made these? To this day, we're over a year in, and I touched the box. I'm like, holy shit, little dream from a couple of ladies. And here they are. So yeah.
I mean, especially with that unsexy job of IP and trademarks, that is when you realize, oh my goodness, the more crazy the name is, then the more chances we probably have in terms of registering it for the category. Whereas the more sense it makes, someone has already registered it already. Does that make sense?
Totally. And we were so happy that within, I think, like 3 weeks, we went to one of these big baby shows where, you know, a lot of different vendors are present, and like thousands of pregnant women will come through in a weekend and be shopping for all the, like, you know, all the kit basically. And we were walking around, and I think I came back to the stand and I was like, Rima, there are 5 other companies with some derivative of the name we were looking at, and Peachies is distinct. And so I was like, whew, we dodged a bullet on that one. I'm so glad that's not what we took forward, even though it worked in many ways. So yeah, you kind of have to bet on being different, but that's the only way we'll be able to stand out in a category that's as big and as kind of incumbent as ours.
I think the name Peachies is also a good reflection of the type of messaging we put out to the world in general. We always say, or we've realized very early on, you need to be really bold and distinct in order to stand out. There are so many, of course, great companies out there, but that also means there's a lot of competition, not only in the nappy industry, but also in many other industries. And people's time span has become so limited, and your attention, you see so many ads every day, that whatever can stick out or is sticky as a brand will stay with you. And now we of course have data around this, but even real life interactions, like when I went to a networking event 2 weeks ago, and in the Google headquarter, and I signed up at the reception and told them, Rima from Peachies co-founder, and he was like, what's Peachies? And I said, well, the next generation nappy company. And then 2 hours later, when he walked past me, he was like, "You're Peachies, right? You're a nappy lady." He didn't remember my name, but he remembered Peachies.
Of course, Peachies, yeah.
Which to me was the best thing that could have happened. And so, yeah, it is, be bold, honestly. Like, say the things that 80% of people would probably not like, because that's when they remember it.
Exactly. You need to grab that 20%. And I have one question. It wasn't in the deck of questions we sent, but you've been around for a year. How did you, in terms of logistics, were you drop shipping at the beginning? Because obviously you don't want to produce a large amount of Peachies nappies and then have it tank because you've only sold the 15 to your family members. How did you figure out your logistics at the beginning?
No risk, no fun, I say.
Yeah, right. Like that's such a good question. So we did have to buy a whole bunch of nappies up front, and that was, a huge part of our.
What was the MOQ at the beginning?
$500,000.
Oh my God!
Yeah, 3 shipping containers worth. So we were nervous. Let's put it that way. When they were not, when you launch on day 2, you're like,
Amazon was going to be the next place to sell it at a discount. It's like,
maybe.
What?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we considered it because we were like, this has to work. So no, we bring our product over from North America, Canada, and Eastern Canada, and we ship from there. So and we ship all across the UK, and it was just part of a risk of setting up our business, and that's part of why we think there is little sort of quote disruption in our space, is because it's not an easy game to break into. It's capital intensive. I don't think you could bootstrap a nappy brand really, unless you were starting with like a nice pool of bootstrap cash.
Yeah, unless you had an exit before.
Yeah, exactly. With our bank account clocking down to like 11 pounds every single month for like 18 months, we were not really in that position. So it was tough. I mean, logistics was something we had to take a bet on, and that's why we had to raise money before launching even, and we're able to kind of drip feed it in the early days to be able to get it off the ground. Because, yeah, as you know, exactly what you articulated was our ultimate fear, having 500,000 nappies sitting in a warehouse that we're liable for and can't sell. But it taught us really early to like get comfortable with the uncomfortable again, and just like, have to do it. I mean, I feel like it is true. A lot of life events happen in the middle of big moments. The week of my wedding,
I think there's a thread. I'm connecting the dots here.
It's really kind of shocking. Rima and I thought it was all over. We were like, it's done. The manufacturer wants us to buy way more than we're prepared or even have money for, blah, blah, blah. And we realized, though, there's always a solution. And you just
cried out first.
Cried out first.
First for a day, and then you start finding a solution.
It's 100% true. That's exactly what we did. We cried it out. We were like, it's over. The dream is over. And then we sat up the next morning, brushed ourselves off, and I'm sure there's a way we can figure this out. And there was, and we figured it out. And I think, fortunately for us, though, we met those kind of challenges really early in our journey. And so we kind of started to okay, we have to have thick skin. We have to know we're going to be rejected, and whether it's investors or customers or whatever the detractors are, whoever they are, they're always going to be there. And in a way, the more people tell you you're crazy, the more you know you're right. And so you have to kind of find that resilience. And so Rima and I, took on a lot of risk, and it's made us better entrepreneurs, because that's part of it. Yeah. And I think next time around, we'll do a different type of business.
Well, next time around, we might have that exit.
Next time, we're hoping our next venture, because we already know we're going to work on it together, is we're just going to sit back and invest in women-led businesses. That's going to be hopefully our dream.
Paying it forward, what's your plan in your head in terms of when you'd like to exit? What's the dream?
I honestly think we shouldn't, or we always say we shouldn't talk about the exit. It's kind of, you see that this could be an option in the future, but you also know that life always happens differently.
And you probably know you're not there yet.
Exactly. And staying humble is such an important thing when you're an entrepreneur. As I said, it's a marathon, and you need to have thick skin and patience. And for us, it's honestly, this is not what gets us out of bed in the morning. Yes, money is great if you can get through your month and pay your rent and cover your main costs and have some sort of a more or less a nice life. Depends. This is of course subjective, but ultimately for us, it's seeing customer reviews, customer emails, happy, or seeing it out in the wild. When I walk through London and see a box in front of someone's doorstep, that is the happiest moment ever. Or for example, a review we recently received from a mother saying, "I'm so grateful Peachies was around when I had my first baby, because it eliminated the anxiety of being a first time parent." And that is something so beautiful that we wouldn't have expected, having this impact on families' lives, not just providing them with longer nights of sleep and a great product or whatever, but making them less anxious. Great, wonderful. That means that we're really creating something beautiful.
It's seeing that impact, isn't it? Like you said, the recognition, people remembering your brand name, then you're a brand. People are actually referring to you as Peaches, the nappy company, and there's a lot of traction in there as well. Let's talk about you as female founders. How do you perceive women empowerment in the entrepreneurial space? What are the things that you've seen and that you've enjoyed? You talked about the community and the programs you've been involved in. But for example, By Women Built is an interesting community as well. But what's your perception of women empowerment in the entrepreneurial space, even though funding is low in terms of investment to that subsectors in women? But how do you see that?
It's a great one. And By Women Built is a brilliant community. We are part of it, and huge fans of what they've put together. I think what I love about that community so much is just the collaboration you see across companies. And I think that is an example of a wider experience we've had, is women standing up for women and being there to help drive each other's business forward. And, whether that's partner with, Hanks, for example, they have a brilliant female founded team, and we swap notes on things, how's your business going? How's our going? How's your raise going? Blah, blah, blah. And I think finding those like-minded entrepreneurs is incredible. And there's no sugarcoating how important it is for women to also keep lifting up each other and championing each other's work, and not being competitive but collaborative. And I think there's space for all of us. We know, because of the numbers, the numbers prove there's space for all of us, and lifting each other's businesses over time will mean hopefully that more of us are successful that can therefore one day also reinvest in the next generation of brands or companies. So, women not being present on cap tables is because they haven't had the opportunity to even, accumulate that kind of wealth really to be able to reinvest in the next generation. And so I think this is a huge effort that we're all part of. And it doesn't only require women, by the way. Like, we don't only have to solve our own problems. We have to bring in other people and galvanize other groups to be able to support us. But it's important, and it's something we really believe in. I mean, I don't know, it's like the same way that I cry every time the US wins an Olympic medal. This is the most annoying thing to say from an American, but the only thing I'm patriotic about is it's the same way when I see other women businesses win. Like, that's amazing. And what we can do to try to lift up other brands, collaborate with them in marketing initiatives or whatever it is, we love to do because it's really important, and it's important to create role models. And Rima and I would probably say we have a lot more work to do before being like, oh, we're role models. But I guess at some point you just realize you've got a lot of at least your experience to share, and that experience alone can help somebody find the confidence to kind of even just take the next step forward. And, certain things that feel super unknown, we can shed light on, like, how do you set up a business? It's like, actually, you just log into the company's house and create a business for £25, something like that. Like, you don't need a lawyer. You don't need anything. You need literally Chat GPT and some Google search. And you can start a business tomorrow, right now, this hour, whatever.
Oh, this is in the UK. We have to disclose that happens
was
in the UK. In Austria, where I'm from, things are a bit different.
True. It is a lot more money and a lot more complicated bureaucracy. But, there are just ways to demystify this journey. And I think we're early enough in ours where we have those details very fresh. And so we'd like to be able to share where we can. But community of women is who we rely on most. And, and the allies around us that have actually done an amazing job of opening opportunities for us. We have other companies we're close to founded by men that will recommend us for podcasts or speaking panels or whatever. And it's a huge impact. And so we try to make sure we pay it forward for the same way, or give back to communities that lifted us up, so that we can make sure more and more smarter women come up behind us.
And I think, because you mentioned the role model aspect, I think everyone can support other businesses in the smallest ways possible. Whether, a friend of yours starts a business, and now knowing what this means and what a beast of work that is, leaving a review, for example, purchasing a product, a small one, posting an Instagram story about their product, tagging them on Instagram or on TikTok or wherever. This is such a small gesture, but it can mean so much to someone starting out, and actually encourage them to continue doing it. Because, as we mentioned quite a few times already, some days are really not easy. Some days are fun, like when you do a podcast recording, or when you talk about your business, when you see happy customers. But there are also the hard days where you're struggling to keep envisioning that dream. And as Morgan mentioned, the staircase is really what we talk about a lot. And this emoji, we haven't sent each other that in a while, but recently it happened again. The bears on the roller coaster is our favorite gift that we use. This is how it feels sometimes, and it's okay. It's part of the game, but I think it's okay to emphasize here that it's not easy, and some days are hard, some days are great. And having a co-founder to lean on is the most beautiful thing ever.
Rima, you've mentioned really an important part about how to support founders. If you don't have, the cash to invest or to buy the product because it doesn't resonate, it's like you said, simple things such as just hit that follow button, because if you can get more people on your Instagram, that amplifies with the algorithm, and then you can do the dirty work of trying to get people to actually buy your product. But it's little things, and it's this misconception that people think support is actually buying the product. You don't have to. There are other things you can do as well, and you'll keep on that roller coaster to grow your business. But it's little things, isn't it? It's the things that add up, the incremental gains that will grow the business over time.
For example, we've recently started to talk openly about other female-founded businesses that we admire on LinkedIn. We would just dedicate a weekly LinkedIn post to them, and it's a beautiful initiative that can support other women. And LinkedIn, by the way, I think is one of the most essential tools as an entrepreneur. It is definitely outside of our comfort zone, creating content as a founder on whether that's for Instagram, LinkedIn. It's never, to us at least, it's not fun. We're starting to enjoy it because we see that it resonates with our audience, so to say, audience, or our community. Audience is only one-sided, community is two-sided. So I think in that case, we do get a response. So it's two-sided. But we see that people are actually excited about what we're building and what we're talking about. And even if it's the things that the challenges, the things that didn't go, that we got wrong, those actually perform best. I think people just share that with each other, and it's the things that no one wants to talk about that perform best.
Now, you are two amazing powerhouses, co-founders, navigating Peachies in various ups and downs. What does self-care look to you? Because we need you to be strong mentally, physically, and be able to have that headspace to come back even better. Start with you, Rima. What does self-care mean to you?
For me, self-care is a mix out of mental and physical self-care. We've mentioned things like being able to go on holidays or take a weekend off and actually turn your phone off from time to time. Of course, Morgan and I can't do that always. We're mostly 24/7 at least available. Also on the weekends when things require our attention, we're there. But we also sometimes try to give each other the space to just enjoy life. Apart from that, I would say to me it's having quite a solid routine, especially in the morning. I have recently started to incorporate walks into my day in the morning. I've read that phrase on LinkedIn, the death walk, which I think is quite a brutal way of saying it. But imagining that you're actually going to be dead at some point while you're walking for 20-30 minutes in the morning, and kind of it just gives you calm and gratefulness and a perspective that you're actually like this little beep in the world that at some point is not going to be there anymore. But now you have the time to make the most out of it. That has certainly helped me. And then apart from that, for the past, I think 3 or 4 years, I've had little days off from from Pilates with my New York-based Pilates teacher. Shout out to Melissa Wood at this point. I think she doesn't need the shout out anymore, but I'll give it anyways. She's accompanied me through every single phase of my life in the last few years. And then meditation. I truly believe in meditation and in personal development, going to see a therapist. I think we should talk very openly about those things. You can go through really tough phases mentally, but having someone there to listen to you and to actually start to be really self-aware and start to see where also within a day through which phases you go mentally. Not every hour is fun. There is a fun hour, and kind of just being aware of this shift that happens inside of you and how different behaviors in your life can influence the decision you take as an entrepreneur, the way how you can show up. So really, prioritizing yourself and taking care of yourself, and limiting things like alcohol and so on. I know it's summer and it's fun, but ultimately we are not getting any younger. And the moment you need 2 days to recover a hangover, you ask yourself the question twice how many Aperol spritz you have.
Morgan, I think Rima has hit some really, really important things. What I would maybe add that I kind of incorporate to mine is, or just building on the kind of point about having other people to talk to. So like neutral third parties that are not necessarily connected to the business or you personally is really valuable. It's somebody else that can be that kind of sounding board. In my case, it's a coach, whether that's a pastor or a therapist or wherever you can find that source. I think it's really valuable. I am around all the time, but I also do go on holiday on places where there's no Wi-Fi on purpose so that, I can get that mental space away. Rima and I always kind of laugh that like the second we kind of get up from the desk and go walk around the block is when all the creativity happens again. And so you really you carve out that time for yourself because you can recharge and you come back fresher, of course. But you also have more creativity. So for me, it's playing tennis. I love to play tennis. I love sports generally, but that's really kind of my outlet. I suck at going to the gym, and I've kind of let go of it instead of trying to force myself into being that person because I'm not that person. I love spending time with my family. My son's 10 months old, and he's in I'm sure he'll always be in a cool phase, but he's in a really cool phase at the moment, and soaking it up is really beautiful. And I love to read, frankly. Like if I can carve out some time for me to read something, usually fiction, except Rima actually just gave me Robert Iger, the CEO of Disney's book that he wrote in 2019, and I devoured it in a weekend. That was a break from my fiction bent. Finding it's really knowing what brings you joy and energy and knowing what doesn't, and being able to kind of manage the time between those things. You always have to do things that drain you, but it's how can you best manage the time? And I think now becoming a parent, I'm rigorous about time management, even more so. And it's because it's necessary. It's necessary for Peachies. It's necessary for my son. It's necessary for me. And that actually has been a big one. And I totally agree with Rima on things like changing lifestyles up. I drink a lot more non-alcoholic beer or low alcohol drinks than I ever have. And I'm super grateful for it, both for my body, but also for my mind. And that's been a big shift also. I mean, not that I was I like to have a good time before my baby. We had a great time, get some dance on the dance floor, but now being a parent with a hangover is the worst. So, yeah, I think you have to assert yourself and create boundaries in a way. And that is if you can do that from the beginning of founding a business, then you're setting yourself up for success, I feel like.
I guess it's, setting those boundaries for the different phases of your life, isn't it? The times of, like you said, the long weekend and having those amazing drinks. And now you have to be focused and agile and running a business and a household. Then they're just different priorities. And thank God now we've got alternatives, isn't it? The 0% market is booming. So it's giving you that feeling of, I'm still a wine. I've tried a few 0%. I've been this is actually not so bad. So I'm still able to partake in activities with my friends, with them questioning why I'm not drinking. It's like a statement. Yeah, I'm having my 0%, and that's fine as well. Last but not least, so we always end the show with our Trailblazer takeaway tips, something to leave the audience with as a keen summary, things they can put in their notes, in their phone, and just help them. So reflecting on your journey so far, what are the key lessons you've learned that you'd like to share with our listeners, whether it's being a founder, a parent, working together, investment funding, the 3 tips that you want to leave the audience with. So we'll start with you, Rima. So you get 6 basically because the 2 of you. So that's amazing.
I'm sure we can come up with even more than 6, but we'll try to limit it. The first thing I would like to talk about is talk to everyone about your idea once you have one. I'm actually quite opposite to what everyone thinks. Is I need to try and keep my idea secret, because what if someone steals it and executes on it and so on. First, 90% of an idea is execution. If you're the right person to do it, you'll do it. And now knowing 2-3 years after starting and building Peachies, it has been a lot of work, honestly. It is not easy to replicate that and to replicate exactly our story. And so go out there and talk to as many people as possible. You don't know who someone might know. You don't know, maybe the friend from which you would have least expected it knows the manufacturer you're going to work with, or Maybe your mother actually knows another investor or something like this. So it's really getting out there with your idea, and also accepting if people tell you either that you're crazy. You of course need to be careful with those statements, because as
Right.
we've mentioned, someone told me at a fair in Geneva, who would ever buy nappies online, when I told them about our idea. And clearly there was something here. So yes, the crazy aspect is one, but also if people tell you, I don't think there is a market for this, start digging deeper and start digging into what that means, because maybe there is no market, but then at least you realize that quite early on, instead of investing years in something that might not going out there and early and talking to a potential customer audience, for example, and starting to understand if this is something that you should pursue. That was tip number one. Tip number two is just get started. It's, yeah, how should I say? It's there. ChatGPT and Google can become your best friends at the early stages and should become your best friend. Google has so many answers, and whether that's setting up a business or whether that's figuring out how to set up a Google, or in the meantime, Google Meta ad, and you've never done it in your life, you really need to go out there, get your hands dirty, and just upskill yourself as much as possible. And so whatever you can teach yourself, you don't have to outsource, which of course is expensive. But also, in order to outsource and in order to hire the right talent, it's good if you at least have a basic foundation, and even better if you know a bit more about the area, what the job requires and what you actually want from them. Because otherwise, you're always tapping in the dark. You're always relying on other people's opinions, and whatever you don't know, you can only believe. And my third tip is get yourself a co-founder. As we mentioned, and within the episode, we couldn't have done this without each other. Knowing knowing the ups and downs of entrepreneurship in the meantime, the highs are a little higher, the lows are a little bit less low, I guess. You can just really bounce ideas off each other. You can rely on each other. And I think the reason why I'm so grateful to have Morgan is not because she does the work, but because she has been there for such a long time, and we've both kind of made this decision together to pursue this, and no matter what it takes to be there. We sometimes joke that it feels like being married to that person. You kind of are. Morgan, of course, is married as well. I'm not. But we're certainly in some sort of way married to each other, and it's beautiful, but it also requires some work, and we put in that work.
Those were brilliant, and now I'm struggling to think of what mine will be, but I think I'll kind of focus maybe more on the kind of sort of interpersonal things. I think staying humble is really important. I think Rima mentioned that earlier, but that humility, even if you have like the most badass idea, I think is really important, because humility helps you see where you're vulnerable as a business owner and where you need to kind of whether upskill yourself or bring in other help. I think can not only make it so that you can do things like attract talent, but when you have really high highs and really low lows, like is inevitable as being a founder, you're able to weather that storm a lot more if you maintain humility. I actually think vulnerability, though, is also a big one. Rima and I don't have all the answers. We never will. We're also not, experts, so to speak, in our category. We are generalists, as we said. And we have always been shocked as to what the results can be is if you just ask the question. The worst somebody can say is no. And if they tell you no, it's going to tell you something about whatever that question was. But asking questions is incredible what you can achieve and what people will be willing to lend to you in terms of time or experience if you just ask. And so I think that vulnerability of not being worried about being a know-it-all is actually a huge, powerful tool. And number three thing, what's number three? Number three is your to-do list is never going to shrink, literally never going to shrink. It will only get longer. So you've got to spend a lot of time thinking about how you invest your time. And, the like, sort of, what is it? Einstein's matrix kind of thing of like, do, schedule, delegate, or throw away. that is something I've even sort of re-implemented into my life recently, and it's had a huge effect because you are more aware of what only you can achieve and need to do and execute on, and what that impact will be, but also where can you ask for help, because you not only will your to-do list not get any shorter, but like you need help. You can't do it all by yourself. And we find, Rima and I find, actually things we collaborate on is what we do best, because you have a sounding board, you have somebody to give you feedback, and you implement it. Even if I ask Rima, look, this is my idea, what do you think? And she says, have you thought about this? I'm like, that's valuable. No matter what, like she'll always have something to add. And so I think, learning to kind of look at that to-do list less as a source of anxiety and more of a source of opportunity will help you kind of tackle it each day. And for me, I pick off what I call eating the frog, which is like the one thing I'm going to tackle in the morning that I like dreading. But if I get it done in the morning when I'm kind of most alert and full of beans and feeling.
Today it was 5:30 in the morning, right?
Today it was 5:30 in the morning. That is 100% true. I even woke up before the baby. I mean, it was just like, my to-do list, but you just kind of eat it. And I think, thinking about those these are opportunities of what I can achieve today, or is kind of a nice positive way to not get too daunted, because it is incredible all the hats you will wear. And if you're open to that experience, I mean, the founder life is super fulfilling in that way.
Amazing. Morgan, Rima, great story. Peachies, subscription nappy products out there for you mothers and fathers who don't want to be schlepping nappies from the store. You can have it delivered to your door. I mean, that guy in Geneva needs to eat his handkerchief or whatever he was saying back in the day. Honestly, because I'm just thinking about my days. My kids were born in Germany, and I was with the pram, and it's the biggest purchase you have. You have to schlep it with you. I definitely could have needed Peachies in those days, but amazing story. It's really great. You're both so humble for you to share openly and be transparent about your journey, about fundraising, about the decision even to start the business, working with a co-founder, and what are the key elements. I'm sure that you inspired some woman, man out there. This is a show for women, but we inspire everyone, which is really important. So thank you so much for sharing your journey.
Thank you for having us. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
So for the audience, this has been the Trailblazers Experience podcast. Remember to tell another woman about the podcast. Follow, subscribe, like. We are on all streaming platforms, wherever you watch your podcast. And until next time, thank you very much.